And welcome to the first episode of In the Lab Live. With me today I've got the nefarious geneticist Patrick, as well as JT, the Canadian national champion. We're going to walk through the team of the week.
Yeah, we're talking about Swarmhawk today, as you'll probably see from the artwork for the prep area, and if you listen to the podcast, which I hope you do, and we'll assume that you are. So today we are using Swarmhawk, which is a creation I made up based on the card Starhawk and the game mechanic Swarm. This rare Starhawk that you'll see over here on the right is a 4-cost mass character, and his ability is Team Watch. When you field a character who shares an affiliation with Starhawk, that character and Starhawk both get +2 attack this turn. Now, he starts out as an Avenger and a Guardian of the Galaxy, so that's good for us when we field, say, our Black Widow character. Black Widow Natasha is really good because she quite often becomes unblockable if our opponent doesn't have any level 2 or level 3 characters or doesn't want to spin those characters down. So buffing her by just fielding her is a really great combo. But we're going to go a little stronger on that. We're going to pick up Infiltrate and use Infiltrate to make Starhawk a D&D monster card. And so we're using Swarm as our resource and ramp mechanic, and every kobold and every sturge now triggers Team Watch. Perfect situation here, but let's just say you field 3 kobolds and 3 sturges because you swarmed 10 dice or something crazy, and you rolled all character faces on all of them, and you got your Infiltrate and an Anger Issues. So you throw the Infiltrate and the Anger Issues on your one Starhawk. Your Starhawk gets +12 attack from all the characters that you fielded. He gets another +3 from Anger Issues. That's +15. Say he was level 3. He's now a 20/20 overcrushing character that is now swinging with 6 3/1 or better attacking characters to go with him. That's so ridiculously high amount of damage. It's just crazy. The structure of this team was built on Truby's Johnny Swarm team, using Human Torch and Kobold and Sturge to swarm and chip away at our opponent's health. And we backed it up with the unblockable Black Widow and then the Starhawk. So you can kind of see the crux of the team. And now I think Dylan wants to talk about how we're going to approach certain other counters to the team.
Right, yeah, we broke down the strategies line by line to kind of focus in on what you might see out in the field in your local stores or even online on Vassal. The first line being mostly direct damage focused teams, followed with theme combo teams, some control factors. But let's go ahead and just walk through the first line. Say you go up against a standard Gabi team focused on getting those sidekicks out, dealing that direct damage. What's your first play, your reactions to how the team build on that would be?
Against Gabi without Professor Xavier, or just a Gabi-centric, Gabi-focused team who's going to try and put as many sidekicks out in the field as I can, I'm going to want to get Human Torch as quickly as possible so I can ping away as many sidekicks as possible every turn. And then I'm also going to want to try and save a shield for Human Paladin Global so I can at least resist some of that Gabi aggression as he comes out on the field. And then on top of that, I just have to worry about the level 3 5/5 Gabi swinging at me, but I have plenty of chump blockers, and I don't mind refielding, and chump blocking Gabi and keeping him on the field is one of the safest ways to not have to worry about him refielding every turn. So that's always, the best strategy in Gabi is almost to just let him stay on the board and do direct damage better than him.
All right, and speaking about Human Torch coming up out on the field, I know you've got a lot of low defense characters, especially with Swarm. What is your strategy on that side?
Human Torch is really hard in the mirror match, but with this many Swarm characters, if he's killing them all off, you just put your Human Torch on the board and you throw them back down again. And at that point, it's kind of just a mirror match, roll off, best man wins. You could, if you're seeing a lot of Human Torch in your local meta, you could swap out maybe an Anger Issues or a character like Human Paladin for something that redirects or prevents damage, or something that that punishes your opponent, like Captain America Man Out of Time is actually a good counter to Human Torch.
All right, next we have Jinzo and essentially Jinzo Light with Wasp. Since that's more of a global strategic team counter, I mean, does it really even play a part that much on your side, or how do you approach that?
It makes blue-eyesing my characters a bit more expensive, so it hurts me mildly in the economic department, but usually the globals I'll be spending are to win the game, so it may make it more difficult for me to just win in one big burst. I may not be able to anger issues as often as I wanted to, but for the most part, no. Jinzo doesn't hurt me anywhere near as much as Wasp does, and Wasp hurts because of her global, not because of her ability.
Right, right. And now with the new set, Age of Ultron, we've seen a revival of Mr. Sinister. Now that Jocasta is really a real competing piece in a lot of these powerful teams. I know directly since the errata, you have probably the best solution on your team for her, though.
Yeah, the Human Paladin Global is a good answer. Human Torch is actually a good answer on my turn because I can field any character to ping a Jocasta, take 1 damage from her, and now basically she's just a big blocker, and I can continue my swarm as I go. So trading 1 damage for 1 damage is not a bad way to deal with Jocasta on our turn. That way our opponent can't Nasty Boy. You can't basically get 1 Jocasta on the field and do 6 damage every turn. His turn, my turn.
Right, right. And then, like I said, the next line's mostly going to be a combo-focused strategy team. Wolverine, formerly Weapon X, what's the defense you have against that on your team?
Chump block him, and then the part that he does, like the way he gets through other things, like globals, which Human Paladin would stop, or massive board wipes, which you just have to find the answer to whatever particular board wipe your opponent's bringing. And the other option is just buy a Grundy and KO Wolverine before they attack. That's just usually the one option.
Right, and definitely, like we were saying, this are just strategies you might see in your local meta. If it doesn't fit with your meta, the team, there's always tweak spots on the builds here. What would you say is kind of a flex spot for, say, you come up in a meta where they're using the Weapon 10 polymorph combo?
You could swap anger issues out for something more defensive if you're finding out that you're not fast enough. You're going to be attacking with so many characters that distraction might not hurt you as much as it could. Another option that actually might be really awesome if you can do it correctly is Mystic Box or Transfer Power. And you can leave your Starhawk in the field, get him really big, attack with a bunch of people, and bounce his, 10-10 off of one of your opponent's characters onto your unblocked character and get in for 10 damage if you have 2 shields. So Transfer Power might be a good other option, and especially since you do have 2 characters that can easily become unblockable for a very low attack value, Transfer Power is a way to subtly sneak in. We were actually talking about whether Transfer Power or Anger Issues would be better, and we decided Anger Issues is better because we do get a character that gets really big really fast, but Transfer Power could work as well.
And then the next couple here actually kind of relate to each other. You've got Patch being the large combo, emphasizing Avengers on your team. I know, again, these are combo-focused strategies, so it's not only this card you're going to see, but it's going to have to be a couple others. But if you just go up against that team that is highly focused on the Avengers affiliation, what's your strategy against that?
Have enough blockers to avoid them. Watch out for their board clear. Nick Fury only helps if they're unblocked, and you have enough characters on your team that are cheap enough that you should be able to block everything you need to or want to block, and then you can just wall up and go unblockable with Black Widow and Sturge. The other option is, with Nick Fury on the board, you can Solomon Grundy after they've declared their attacks, let their Avengers that are going to hit you for a little bit but double it, go unblocked, and then Solomon Grundy their Nick Fury before you take the double damage. And that's a way to get rid of everything and make him have to refield Nick Fury. So that's another option too.
Next is going to be the flying sidekicks or just sidekick-focused teams. What's the strategy on that?
With sidekick-focused teams, the answer is pretty similar to the Gabi discussion, and that's get Human Torch so that you can kill the Gabis as an incidental afterthought. Kill the sidekicks as an incidental afterthought. Or if the sidekicks are too big because Captain America's on the field or what have you, you can kill Captain America for about the same expenditure.
Right, definitely have the answer there. Next is really just a spot removal character that you're probably going to see. Your team being, again, low defense might be more affected by Green Goliath than Jade Giant, but when you do come onto a matchup with those two, what's your strategy and purchase that you would want to counter that?
Solomon Grundy is the best answer to either of the Hulks. If you're finding Hulk to be really, really, really prevalent in your team, you could swap out a character like either Black Widow if nobody's using Professor Xavier, because that's really what she's there for, is for the masks, or Sturge even, because you don't want to invest as heavily into the direct damage because they're bringing Hulk. You could swap in a prismatic spray so that you can get in for damage on your turn and just prismatic spray the Hulk or things like that.
Like I said, the next line's really focused on aggressive characters. We've got one of the first super rare cards from the AVX set, Black Widow Serena, dealing 2 damage every time she attacks unless you spin down. Patrick, I know that you're going to have a lot of characters, it sounds like, out on the field. Is that probably going to be the counter, or is that probably the best solution?
Yeah, spin down a character, chump block with your new level 1 Swarm character, and it goes to the prep area. You field it again, and you ping her off with Human Torch, and then you can attack back, and they won't have any blockers. Or just maintain your wall. But hopefully, when you re-roll your characters, you get a couple levels out of them, and you're not taking as much. Against like this many kobolds or this many Sturges or even this many Black Widows, the Natasha isn't as powerful because she doesn't. The resource you have, which is levels on your characters, is more common than it would be on, say, somebody who's spending 4 or 5 per character.
Right. And next, we're actually going to go to the latest set, Age of Ultron. We've got the Ultron drone. This is the 3 cost, but the main focus on this one probably is going to be the Global for Control feature. Now, again, your team, you sounds like you got a lot of expendable characters on it. What's the main strategy that you'd probably imply with here?
Well, that global, I actually love it when my opponent brings that global because I have more fists than they do, or at least as many, and so that global works to my advantage as much or more than it does for their advantage. And then on top of that, the Ultron drone's ability does chip damage, which we can either reduce through Human Paladin or we just block with any of our 0 fielding cost characters. And then Ultron drone also represents a Overcrush threat, which might be a problem for us, but we do still have, again, Solomon Grundy or the Human Torch to ping off the Overcrushing attacker.
All right, next is Venom. Venom, the Angela Fortuna, the rare, having the -2/-2 effect on all non-fists. Now, your team seems like the majority of what's going to actually be out on the field is going to be fists, so it's not going to be as effective, right?
Right, yeah, nowhere near as effective. Human Torch level 1 and Human Paladin level 1 may not be able to ever actually get on the field, but at the very least you'll be able to field them, have them immediately KO, and re-roll them again next turn. So at worst, it just puts them to a side so you can get them back out, hopefully at level 2 or 3. As for removing Angel, Solomon Grundy does that really well, Angelo. Especially if, say, they have Venom and, say, a Manticore that does 1 damage to your characters when they're fielded, just to combo really well. Solomon Grundy at level 1, you'll be able to field him, and he'll immediately die, and then you can KO Venom. And Solomon Grundy's prepped, and Venom is prepped, and it's a good strategy. Or you can wait until your opponent plays what they play on their turn, and then kill Venom before the combat step. That's another. It's the better timing, but it's another option.
And next we have Spider-Man Webslinger. This is the character that a lot of people I know are playing with now, since the meta has kind of shifted towards building a wall and then going in for that kill strike. What really is the major counter to this that you have on your team?
One, this team's faster than that. Human Torch jumps over the wall, Sturge flies over the wall, Black Widow tumbles under the wall. All of them get big or bigger or do damage faster. But if your opponent does get Spider-Man and a bunch of guys out, you can always just threaten with Grundy to kill Spider-Man before he attacks. And saving that 1 bolt to Blue Eyes Grundy is all you need to make sure Spider-Man can't attack and fist your entire team off the board.
Right. Next, we have the Undead Master of Magnetism, Magneto, 6 cost shield. This is going to be the one from Age of Ultron that states that all characters with cost 3 or less lose their ability while he is active. Now, that sounds like a major issue for your team here, being mostly, under 3 costs for the majority of the characters.
Well, Magneto doesn't get rid of affiliations, so it'll still trigger Starhawk's ability or Human Torch's ability. Because I'm still either fielding a body or fielding an Avenger/monster. So Starhawk can still get really big when I field my chump blocking non-swarming characters. And then the other option is, hey, instead of fielding them, I just keep them as energy and I try to get myself some Solomon Grundys. And if I have 2 Solomon Grundys in circulation, that should beat out your 1 Magneto in circulation, and I should be able to get my swarm on, as it were.
All right, we're down to the home stretch here. So next is going to be the Lord of D, a Ring of Magnetism combo, and that's the one where if you do place this on a Lord of D character die, it is negating any of the direct global or action dice or ability effects as a must-target Lord of D, countering it itself with Ring of Magnetism. So I know, again, this doesn't look like it's too much of a factor on your team, but you do, it sounds like, rely on infiltration and anger issues sometimes to get through the walls. Is there another strategy?
Sure, yeah, I won't be able to anger issues, I won't be able to infiltrate, I won't be able to Solomon Grundy Lord of D, but I can just buy Black Widows and Sturges and Kobolds and just get past the wall, right? Lord of D is 2 major purchases on my opponent's end. I get Human Torch on the field, and I field on my Swarm characters. I won't be able to ping off his character, but I'm still doing chip damage to my opponent. And then on top of that, I have Unblockable Sturge or nearly Unblockable Widow, both just swinging in for chip damage here and there. And one thing about Lord of D is he is touted as able to not be relentless. Well, when you're unblockable, relentless isn't what your problem is. It's having an answer to my unblockable characters that is really what you want to look for. And Lord of D is not that.
All right, now we're looking at one of the few DC character cards we actually have here on the list, Constantine, the super rare that negates the named card for your turn. Now, again, it doesn't seem like you have too many wind-fielded effects, so it really shouldn't be a factor, but if you do see this, how would you play around this?
The one thing Constantine does hinder me on is if I field, say, Black Widow to combo off of Starhawk. My Black Widows won't be able to attack while they have their buff. But what I can do is just acknowledge that fact, attack with them on the next turn, and ping off Constantine with Human Torch. I mean, Constantine is 3 defense, so I just have to field 3 characters. And Swarm will trigger before Constantine will shut me down. So he doesn't hinder Swarm very much. He will prevent me from being forced to attack into a Human Paladin. He will prevent me from being unblocked as a Sturge, but he won't prevent me from swarming. And Swarm is really all I care about on Kobold and Sturge. So unblockable's good, but if I don't get it, then that's not a big deal because I can attack, and if Constantine blocks me, great. If he doesn't, I still get through for damage.
All right, and finally down here to the last lump, characters that you might see as support on another team. We went ahead and put these together because they all do a very similar thing, and that's counter direct damage. You've got the Human Paladin, Lesser Emerald Enclave, Captain America, the First Avenger, and then lastly you have Captain America Man Out of Time. Again, your team does have the direct damage focused effects on it with Human Torch. What's your strategy around these teams?
Human Paladin and Man Out of Time don't really stop Human Torch. They will make the game go, well, at least Man Out of Time makes the game go faster with Human Torch out, but he doesn't directly counter it so much if I'm playing a Swarm team like this, because I'm going to have more bodies than my opponent. So if I'm not taking big hits from something else, all it does is keep the game going fast. Whereas the First Avenger will negate Human Torch, but I'm still clearing characters. So he may prevent 3 damage as I field 3 characters, but if those 3 characters then kill the First Avenger, because he was on level 1, let's say, then every other character I field that turn allows me to continue to ping my opponent. And then none of those characters prevent me from being unblockable with buffs and pumps. So it's all solid quality like defense, but not much of it has any defensive relevance. And then, as I've said multiple times, if there is something that's being an exceptional problem, Solomon Grundy.
That's right. You can always rely on the national, actually the world champion combo there of Grundy and Blue Eyes. JT, what are your thoughts on this team? Do you have any? Have you had any experience playing this, or have you seen it in play?
No, I think it's a fun experiment. I think there's a lot of neat things with it, but I think Patrick will be the first to admit that it's probably not quite tuned, just because it is a newer idea. But I mean, Starhawk gets so big, so fast when the dice come together. It's kind of scary to stare that down.
Yeah, like all of my teams, I'm making a team every week. I don't have time to tune it out, but the backbone of this team is what you guys want to take and work with and start making your own and build it towards your local meta. And then once you figure out how to play the team in your local meta, if you start going to a more constructed like convention meta, then see how the field breaks down there, and eventually, who knows, you may be able to take a team like this to Worlds.
Again, thank you both to JT and nefarious geneticist Patrick for sharing this with us. Catch us next time in the Lab Live.
Hiding from my hand, why don't people understand my intention?